Since the very first tweet or MySpace post, social media has been a boon to bringing worlds together. But like with many of humanity's great breakthroughs in communication, with all the good comes the bad. And this week certainly showed us some of that bad, thanks to our friendly neighborhood law enforcement and corrections officers who took a fun-loving social media challenge to a very dark level. Called the Feeling Cute Challenge, the viral fun started after a Columbus Waterworks employee posted a pic of himself stating, "Feeling cute. Might cut your water off later. I don't know." This inspired many in uniform jobs around the country to send in similar photos under the hashtag Feeling Cute Challenge. That's when the controversy began, after law enforcement officers and corrections officers started posting photos with captions declaring, "Feeling cute. Might just tase your girlfriend later. Feeling cute. Might deliver OC spray to your baby daddy today. Feeling cute. Might take your homeboy to the hole today. And feeling cute. Might shoot your baby daddy today." So is this just viral media fun, or has Viral Challenge exposed a dangerous mindset and lack of morality in our law enforcement community? Joining us today to discuss is former Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Community Relations Officer Ronald Hampton. Thank you for joining us today, Ronald.
Thank you very much for having me.
Ronald, as a former officer, how does a scandal like this and seeing these kind of social media things put out there, how does that affect the trust between law enforcement and a community when they see their officers, someone they might run and have an interaction with suddenly on their social media pages posting
Well,
stuff like
first of all, from a historical perspective, this isn't the first time a situation like this has happened. This is happening because in the social media aspect, but it actually happened here in the District of Columbia when they first put computer monitors in cars. They had a monitoring system, and the old chief of police, the old assistant chief of police happened to had the responsibility of monitoring them from time to time, and actually discovered this conversation that was going on between police officers across the city that was on the system. And it was those kind of comments was on there, along with comments about police officers, from police officers, gay comments, and all those kind of things. So it is an unfortunate kind of thing, but it's also an example of how what has happened, the disintegration of respect and professionalism in the profession of policing. And you're right, I think it seriously reduces the respect and understanding that the community, understanding why the community doesn't have respect for the police, but how they've lost confidence in the law enforcement agencies in our cities and across the country.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So one of the things that always sort of shocks me is when they're so glib about something that is so terrifying to most civilians.
Right.
Whether, no matter the color of your skin or your gender, I think that, we are all kind of terrified of the idea of being tased, of being shot.
That's exactly right. And they seem to normalize and think that it's all right. An old police chief in the city of Los Angeles years ago, Darrell Gates, used to say, you can think these things, but you can't really say them. But now what we're finding out is that people are really saying them. And if they say them, guess what? They'll do it. You just have to give them an opportunity or create the opportunity for them to do it, and then they do it. And so that's why there's psychological, that's why there's some tests that takes place in the early stages of policing, recruit to sort of weed out those kind of people that will think a thing and then ultimately do it. But evidently the testing process wasn't successful with these individuals, because as I went through that, I would fire all of them. I think all of them need to be gone.
Yeah. And I wonder sometimes, that's the thing, is the idea that these things are so glib and they're nothing. I mean, you look at somewhere like, to me, there's a lot of, as you see, started with Rodney King and how glib the officers were and how glib they were about everything. And a story that years later, I met one of the attorneys that had defended. I was working for an attorney that was working against him, just so we know what side I was on. Right, it was a police violence thing, but it was on the other side. And that attorney, when we went into his office for a meeting, literally has a bronzed version of one of the officer's boots that beat Rodney King with. He has it bronzed behind his desk. And I think that talks to some of it, that we kind of feel like we're allowed. We're allowed. And do you think that has had an impact of making it like our lives really don't matter? If
Oh,
a
yeah,
cop shows up, it's up to them whether we live or die.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it was demonstrated in Rodney King. It's demonstrated to some extent in the shootings that we've seen, because life has no value. But we only talk about certain people and in certain communities, because clearly, for example, in this city, in Georgetown, we wouldn't do that. And in New York, they wouldn't do it in Upper Manhattan. They wouldn't do it out on the island. That's just now how the law enforcement agencies and the individuals working perform in this country. And we don't do that to poor. We don't do that to rich people. What we do it to poor people.
It's interesting too, because a lot of this kind of viral, challenge, and when you saw a lot of law enforcement, there were a lot of corrections officers, a lot of people working in prisons and things like that. And I know the argument from the other side is going to be, look, we should just relax. The officers who did this are just having fun and making a joke in a way we wouldn't understand, because there is a certain dark humor, and I've talked to many police, there's a certain dark humor that you do get working in corrections and working in law enforcement, unfortunately, that comes to having to deal a lot of times with the worst parts of human nature, right? But is that a good enough of an excuse, when you see things like this, like we're seeing on our screen right now, and people writing that on social media?
Because people who work in corrections don't own the people who they supervise or look out for. There's a responsibility that they have, believe it or not, to keep them safe in that environment. And you can't keep someone safe thinking that you can put them in the hole when you want to, that you can bust them in the head when you want to, or you can spray them in the face or the eyes anytime you want to. You can't. But you do have the responsibility to look out for them. I seriously think that one of the things that we ought to be at least exposing our correction officers to, because that's a depressive environment to be working in, is some kind of evaluation and analysis around how they feel about the people that they're working with and responsible to. Because if that's the way you feel, then that's not the job for you. Yeah. I give a lot of credit to those guys that would go into the prison and work in the prison 8-9 hours a day and in that environment. But we know also that it don't have to be that type of environment in prison, because we have some model environment prisons in this country that are doing some positive things when it comes to incarcerating people.
That is very true. That is very true.
And I think it's just something that we're not looking out either for the mental health of the people that we're watching, the people we've incarcerated. But for a lot of times I keep hearing this thing that we're not looking out for the mental health of the people that are there. Yeah. And these actions, I think, put your good correction officers at risk, and also makes it harder for them, and we're not looking at their mental health to handle it.
No, it's not. One of the largest county jail systems in our country, in Chicago, in Cook County, we have good leadership there. For example, there's a program where the warden is a former she's a psychiatrist by trade, smart. But also, and she's doing some things to look at that, because anytime we have more people that are incarcerated that have mental health problems, and really should they be incarcerated in that sense, but in some kind of sense where they get the treatment? Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, Ron Lahampton, thank you so much for coming on today. Always a pleasure having your knowledge and insight into these matters. Thank you. Since last week's controversial incarceration of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, political leaders, journalists, and activists have been waging a non-stop viral war of words, think pieces, and opinion articles over the U.S. government's charges against Assange and the potential dangers to press freedom that they represent. And while this was certainly to be expected, what wasn't expected was the amount of official U.S. government organizations and representatives who've gotten in on the game, including the U.S. House Foreign Affairs Committee, who took time out of their busy schedule of rubber-stamping arms deals for U.S. presidents and fear-mongering their way through U.S. foreign policy to dive into the Assange online debate, tweeting at RT America correspondent Dan Cohn, quote, "The First Amendment protects free expression even for Russian propaganda outlets like the one you work for. It doesn't protect criminals who weaponize stolen information." Joining us now to discuss the actions of the committee and the viral war surrounding the jailing of Julian Assange is RT America's Dan Cohn. Thank you so much, Dan, for coming on. You've had an interesting few days on social media.
Right.
What is the story surrounding this tweet, and what are people saying about this? The Department of the Foreign Affairs Committee tweeting at you the way they did.
Well, it's remarkable that the House Foreign Affairs Committee or the staffer behind this tweet or whoever, took the time away from maybe stopping the genocide in Yemen or something like that to lash out at me. But I mean, there's two things that are really remarkable about this tweet. First, it says Assange is being charged with weaponizing stolen information. Number one, that's not true. That's talking about Hillary Clinton's emails that were either stolen or leaked. We don't actually know, but that's not what he's charged with. That is clearly what he's being put on public trial for, and that's what the House Foreign Affairs Committee is talking about. Number two, the charge is actually a conspiracy, alleged conspiracy to hack, to assist Chelsea Manning in getting into a computer that that belongs to the Department of Defense that she actually already had access to. That's called protecting your source. Yes. So it's totally misinformed and really insidious.
It truly is. It truly
Now,
is.
one of the things that came out of this is sort of the twist in what came out of the fallout of the Julian Assange arrest and the legal jumps and everything. So what is the latest on the actual charges?
Well, Assange faces, they're saying 5 years in prison, and there's a statute of limitations with what he's charged with, of this conspiracy to get into this computer that runs out. The statute of limitations runs out after 5 years, and this was allegedly, the crime was allegedly committed in 2010, so it's long expired. So what the Trump administration did is use the magic word of terrorism that they dug up from the Patriot Act, which we can thank George Bush for, and the war on terror, and that basically gave them 2 weeks until the very end of that statute of limitations is about to run out, and that's how they got him.
That's incredible. That's incredible that they've sat and doubled up like that. Absolutely nuts.
It seems like whatever we do, we're weaponizing information. They are delicately holding it and protecting it, and everybody else is loving that.
Can we say that the U.S. government might possibly be weaponizing charges, bringing charges against people and weaponizing the justice system?
Yeah, the House Foreign Affairs Committee is not even sure what they're charging him for, but get him no matter what.
That's how it
Dan
works,
Cohn,
right?
thank you so much for coming on and illuminating this for us. Always a pleasure having you on, sir. Thank you.
So 40% of the world's population is at risk of contracting malaria, most likely by a mosquito bite, which is why, as we move away from dangerous chemicals to rid ourselves of the blood-sucking little monsters, science has looked to dubstep. That's right. A team of international researchers discovered that when female mosquitoes, for 10 straight, were playing music for 10 minutes straight, were subjected to the Skrillex electronic dance hit, Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites. For 10 minutes straight, they sucked less blood and mated less. The song was picked due to its continuously intensifying pitch and disproportionate level of loudness. The Skrillex-induced mosquitoes were also 5 times less likely to mate because the music throws off the male mosquitoes' beating of their wings. In addition, they also found the Beatles who listen to AC/DC's rock classic Back in Black eat fewer aphids. So I say crank up the tunes this summer and see if you can be bug-free.
Most definitely. All right, that is our show for you. Brilliant. That is our show for you today, everyone. Remember, in this world, we are not told we are loved enough. So I tell you all, I love you. I am Tyrell Ventura.
And I'm Tabitha Wallace.
Keep on watching all those hawks out there and have a great day and night, everybody.